So happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yes.
We had different ideas on how we
Yeah.
were going to start that. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to Open Dialogue.
Currently, I am Becca.
She is Becca currently. Her name might change apparently.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Welcome to the current Open Dialogue. I am Becca.
And I am Anna. Hopefully we've established what our individual names are now.
Yes, and just so you know, the clouds are moving over the sun, and our lighting is just gonna be.
It's gonna be a little bit funky this episode.
It's a little funky, but it's okay.
Yeah, we've got some cloud action happening outside, and unfortunately nature isn't working with us right now, and also unfortunately we don't really have any way to mitigate the
Sun
results from that.
coming in and out.
Yeah. So we might be having a little bit of a strobe party in here. Just bear with us.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. I'm glad we finally got to that part.
Yes, that's all right.
I'm looking forward to eating way too much. Gluttony.
One of those 7 deadly sins.
Sinful. Okay. So, what do you think of when you think of Thanksgiving? Like, whether that's what you actually do, what you hear in pop culture, what you were taught in school. I don't really care where your sources come from. I just want to know, like, the recall game. Like, what happens when you think about Thanksgiving?
First thing is a gathering and food.
Fantastic.
That's my first thought.
Right off the bat.
Yep.
So, Thanksgiving, for the most part, didn't really used to be about food. It was typically celebrated as a religious gathering or a ceremony.
That makes sense.
Not a gluttonous feast.
Yeah.
So we all like to think, especially because of our education or potentially lack thereof, depending on where you went to school.
Mm-hmm.
We all like to think that up in Plymouth, however you want to say it, there was a peaceful gathering of the indigenous peoples and the white man. And they had a feast with cornucopias and turkeys and mashed potatoes and pies and tarts. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful event.
That's what they made you color in kindergarten.
And in high school. That's how good my education was in high school.
You colored it?
You betcha.
In high school?
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there to this day remains debate as to where the first Thanksgiving, I'm doing air quotations, actually took place.
In the Americas?
Well, yes, in the Americas, but where at in the Americas? Okay. So in 1565, we going way back, before the Salem witch trials, in St. Augustine, Florida. Yep, Florida. That's a weird picture. Yeah. A Spanish explorer by the name of Pedro Mendez de Avil invited members of the Timucua. I probably did not say that correctly, and I do apologize for that. But he invited members of this tribe to a dinner. Before this dinner took place, he had a mass like the religious mass.
Catholic.
To give thanks to God for a safe and prosperous journey to the Americas.
Okay. That fits the bill.
Yes. So some people like to say that no. The first Thanksgiving was actually in Florida many years prior to when the Mayflower ever landed in the Americas.
Okay.
Okay. And then again, before the Mayflower ever made it to the Americas, on December 4th, 1619, British settlers arrived at the banks of the James River in Virginia at the site most commonly known as the Berkeley Hundred, and designated that day as a, quote, day of thanksgiving to the Almighty God. So you can kind of see how a lot of these celebrations, especially in the beginnings of this, were very much so dedicated to like religious celebrations versus eating so much turkey you can't breathe anymore.
Right.
Right. So we've got those two situations. And then, of course, we have what we all know and love as the arrival of the Mayflower in Cape Cod in 1620. And a lot of people like to say that that is the true location of the first Thanksgiving because that's what we're all taught.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Well, let's get a little timeline before we really dive into the Mayflower.
Okay.
Okay. So, Thanksgiving wasn't officially made into a U.S. holiday or a national holiday until 1941, when Congress passed a bill stating that the fourth Thursday of every November was going to be Thanksgiving. It didn't happen until then. So in 1789, good old George Washington, the founding father,
Yes.
announced a proclamation of Thanksgiving calling for gratitude after the end of the war, successful independence, and ratification of the Constitution. In 1817, New York was the first of many states to adopt an official annual celebration. It wasn't any I don't want to say government mandated, but it wasn't a national thing at this point. It was just New York and a handful of other states saying, yeah, let's do something every year. That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. In 1827, a journalist by the name of Sarah Hale launched a campaign in an attempt to make it an official holiday. And then we're going to fast forward.
Like a Pioneer Day?
I don't know. I just said an official holiday.
Okay.
The pioneers and the settlers, I'm pretty sure, are completely different groups of people. I don't think you were considered a pioneer until you made it to the Midwest. I could be wrong on that for all of you history buffs out there. But I don't know if you were considered a pioneer until you made it to the Great Plains.
Okay.
I don't know, though. That's just an assumption. So in 1863, you know what was happening in 1863 in the Americas?
1863.
Mm-hmm.
No, not off the top of my head.
Abraham Lincoln in the Civil War.
Oh.
So Mr. Lincoln himself in 1863.
Oh, man. Okay.
Announced it as an official holiday. And he did this in an attempt to raise national morale and bring the country together because we were in the middle of the Civil War. So he was trying to unite the North and the South. He decided that it was going to be the last Thursday of every November. And that's when we were going to celebrate Thanksgiving. Fast forward a bit more to 1939. On that particular year, Thanksgiving happened to be the very last day of the month.
Oh, dang.
Well, what in the world are we going to do about Black Friday? It's not going to be in November. That's weird. A lot of people thought so too.
You mean December?
No. Usually it's in November because Black Friday is the Friday after Thanksgiving. And usually you have another day after Thanksgiving
Right.
before you hit December.
Right.
Well, in 1939, the United States was still trying to recover economically and financially from the Great Depression.
Yep.
And it was quite worrisome that they were not able to have the shopping season as prominent as it should have been because Thanksgiving was the last day of the month.
Yeah. It's different.
So they were worried about dampening economic growth that they had started to see after recovering from the Great Depression. So Franklin Roosevelt declared to have it on the second to last Thursday of November. Well, 16 states said, nah, boo, we good. And they kept their celebration on the last Thursday. Meanwhile, the other states kept it on the second to last Thursday. So for 2 consecutive years, all the states,
They were having it at different times.
there were multiple Thanksgiving celebrations
Yeah.
on different weeks. It was probably a weird and confusing time.
Probably.
Well, at long last, the government said, no. We're sticking with one day, my dudes. And that was when in 1941, Congress said it's going to be the 4th Thursday of every November. So there's your little history lesson on that.
Nice.
Now, my whole idea with this was to find the dark side of Thanksgiving. Right?
Okay.
Because we all know that history is a little more or a lot more messed up than what we were taught in our public schooling.
Yes, absolutely.
Very much so. I kind of got dark, kind of not. But I kind of got into this single individual.
Okay. I remember you saying you went down the wrong rabbit hole.
I did go down the wrong rabbit hole.
Okay.
But hopefully...
I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, I was say hopefully you still appreciate...
If you went down the rabbit hole, I know it's good.
Potentially.
It's good. Let's go.
Okay. So there is much evidence in the world. See, and now the sun's doing weird stuff again with our camera.
The darkness is upon us.
That's because the heavens know that we're about to talk about the crap.
The crap.
And then it got really bright again. Okay, so anyway, English settlers or travelers or whatever you want to call them were coming to the Americas way before 1620 when the Mayflower landed. Okay. And with them, as they liked to do, they brought disease, strife, hardships, and everything in between with them.
Yeah.
So the indigenous peoples of America, of Northern America, at that time, we didn't live the same way that they did.
Yeah.
Because you come from like the crowded, dirty streets of London to like the bright, open natural landscape of
people living off of the land.
Exactly. So you really didn't have a lot of disease and epidemics like that. So when the settlers came over, they brought all of their ick. They brought it all.
Ugh.
And they were coming. There was a few different things that they would travel here for, but a big part of it was to catch cod, like the fish, and take it back to southern England. So there were a lot of people coming over and just getting resources and things like that and taking it back to England. So there was a lot of
traffic.
Yes,
A lot of foot traffic
coming through here that at the time was also causing strife between the Indian tribes that were here.
Yeah.
because they're just like inserting themselves in a balanced world, and suddenly you put more weight on one side of the scale and everything gets messed up. Right?
Right.
So in 1605, a man by the name of George Weymouth. Weymouth. I don't know.
Weymouth.
He set out on a voyage to New England, and a comment I made was, why did we have England in New England? Were we really that unoriginal that we couldn't just come up with a new name for the New World? The New World, as they like to call it? Because it clearly wasn't new. Like, people were here, and people had been here.
I have opinions.
Me too. They might not be the same opinions, but I also have them.
I just think that they were entitled as fuck.
Oh, absolutely.
And they came and they're like, nah, this is ours. I don't care if you were here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. It's ours.
Yep.
Like, they just entitled fucks.
So we've all heard of the absolute catastrophe that was the African slave trade.
Yes.
And we know how that went here in the Americas.
Yes. The Indians got the same.
Oh, yes, they did.
They got the same kind of treatment.
Absolutely. So Mr. George Weymouth set out on a voyage to New England in an attempt to settle down there and create a new life for himself. Right?
I feel like you're reading me a story from a fairy tale book.
I'm taking my notes and I'm making them into sentences.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
During this voyage, he found 5 Native Americans. And there's no record of this, but I'm sure in his head of his, he was thinking, wow, look at those beautiful specimens.
What did he do?
Many of the men aboard his ship, I say many, there were a couple of them on his ship that said, we shouldn't do this, my guy. And he said, I'm in charge here.
Oh, I'm going to throw up in my mouth.
Quote, the capture of Indians was a matter of great importance for the full accomplishment of our voyage. That was a quote from Mr. George Weymouth himself. He captured 5 Native Americans, took them hostage, and sold them into slavery back in England. And from what I understood from that bit in history, he felt like he needed to do this for whether it be praise, money, some sort of advancement that would come of him.
Yeah.
That would be throned upon him once he reached England with these 5 now enslaved individuals.
That makes me sick.
And that was definitely not the first or the last individual to do that.
Oh, no, they did. They could pick anybody up in slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody. Yep. As long as they're foreign or what is it called? Like if it's a child of a like indentured servant, then they could just take the kid and like sell it into slavery. Yep. Like it's just
people fantastic.
Ugh, it's so gross. I seriously I feel like it makes me sick.
I'm glad we could upset each other today.
Guess it's my turn.
So we're going to fast forward to the Mayflower landing, arriving. In 1620.
Okay, we're here.
Cape Cod.
We're getting off the Mayflower.
Not quite.
Oh, dang.
So the Mayflower set out, maybe not in the best time. It started out with 102 passengers. And by the time, I think it said it was like 66 days that it took to get from England to the Americas on this boat. And during that time, it was a hard trip. And once they reached the Americas, it was in the winter. And winter in the Northeast is not kind.
No, no, no.
So once they arrived there, they stayed on board as like protection or safety, or for some reason, these people felt it would be better and more advantageous for them to stay on board the ship. Okay, to wait out the winter, of course.
Okay.
There was disease.
Absolutely.
Scurvy. And just the harsh environment in general were not kind to these travelers.
Yeah.
And by the time winter had concluded and spring was starting to show up, around the March timeframe, over half of them had passed, the crew included. So not very many of those people actually got to ever set foot on North American soil.
Wow.
When they came ashore, they were greeted by a man from the Abenaki tribe who, to their surprise, spoke English. That's got to be weird, right? In your small little world, you step off into a new land and there's a guy coming up to you. He doesn't look anything like you, but he speaks your language.
Yeah.
That's weird.
He's that educated individual.
So as I was saying, there were a lot of English travelers who came through.
Yeah.
So, at some point,
you're going to pick up on it.
You're probably going to learn some things, especially if you're at the forefront of it, which a lot of the indigenous peoples were for like goods from them, for protection from other tribes, for protection from the settlers themselves, so they were probably had some good alliances being formed before things were actually recorded.
Right. They were really big on trade.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, there I go hiccuping again. After this introduction, he left and he came back with a man named, and I am really going to butcher this man's name, and I really, really apologize because this feels disrespectful because this man did a lot. Okay. He did a lot.
Okay. What did he do? What's his name?
I believe you pronounce it Tiscantum. I'm not sure, but he also went by the name Squanto. And there's a lot of debate as to how his name was actually pronounced, how it was actually written, and all of those types of things. His name doesn't sound familiar, though, does it?
Squanto sounds familiar.
Squanto does, but not the name he went by.
I don't know if you're saying it right, so probably not.
Well, like the rest of us could, so, yeah. We just kind of got regurgitated information in school, so who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, so this man is the one that is commonly depicted as the Native American who taught the settlers how to cultivate crops, how to catch animals, how to fish, and those kinds of things. So he's very well known, but maybe not as the individual who started all of this.
Okay.
I don't have my date. Oh no. That's okay.
Oh no.
So before this ever took place, he himself, Squanto, was captured by a slave trader. This slave trader's name was Captain Thomas Hunt. He trafficked Squanto to Spain, and this was 6 years before the Mayflower arrived. So I did put a date in there. I just didn't make it super obvious for myself.
Yeah.
So this would have been 1614. He trafficked him to Spain. He did this by luring him, as well as many other Native Americans, on board his ship with the promise of trade. After these Native
That's
Americans had
gross.
stepped foot on his ship, he captured them, trapped them on board, and sailed off with them.
No.
He then went down the coast a little bit and did the same thing with another tribe and captured more people, and then headed off to Spain to sell them.
No.
Once he got to Spain, he was able to escape because, he made it back to the Americas.
Yeah.
If I understood correctly, he was purchased as a ransom by Franciscan monks that worked with the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And after they purchased him, he somehow, I don't know if they were like really doing God's work and just trying to free these slaves, and that's how they were doing that, or if they were trying to like recruit him into their monkhood. I'm not really sure why they did this, but they did. And he somehow in this time span went from Spain to England. He ended up in England.
Interesting.
From England, he sailed out and he made it back to the Americas by 1619.
Okay.
So I'd say this guy got pretty lucky.
Did you just burp?
No, I keep whacking my glasses on my microphone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's really lucky. I mean, I would love to know the backstory on how he got from point A to point B to point C and then back to point A.
There's not a lot of information on it because this was the
so cool.
1600s.
It would be so cool to
and
be
he wasn't
like,
royalty, so nobody cared.
That is so cool though. Like I would like to know how. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I wish we knew more.
Yeah. You could like go back in time and whenever somebody starts to do something, you're like, hold on, I learned about you in history. I'm going to need you to write your notes in this notebook right here. So in 400 years, when I'm sitting in my history class, I actually know more about what went on and not just like a one sentence snippet from history.
Yeah.
So if we could just notate that, that'd be great. Wait, what are you eating right now? Write that down. I need to know. It's for historical purposes.
I would just love to go to those humongous libraries in like England that they have of original books, and you have to like,
there's not many of those left anymore,
check them out, and you cannot leave. You have to read them there.
They have some of those at the place that I went to college at. You can only go in with an attendant. You have to wear gloves and you can't leave the room with it. And it's like a temperature controlled, humidity controlled room.
Yeah. I would love to just live in a place like that.
I mean, yeah.
And just
books are cool,
be full of knowledge.
That would fit your personality a lot more than mine. That would be your happy place.
Yeah.
So I said he was lucky. I don't think so.
Really?
He managed to get away from the slave trade, but when he returned to the Americas, he found most of his tribe annihilated, essentially.
Oh no.
An epidemic had pretty well swept through his entire tribe, and really nobody made it. Yeah. So it was once thought that it was smallpox that had offed a bunch of them. But apparently with some more recent research, it was leptospirosis.
Ooh,
they're thinking is what caused that.
Yeah, what is that?
We vaccinate our dogs for leptospirosis now.
What is it?
It's a bacteria, which now you more commonly see it in the urine from wildlife. It'll like show up in like puddles, like after it rains, it'll be in a puddle. Or if it, a contaminated deer, raccoon, or whatever urinates it and it's on the grass or whatever,
Okay.
But back here, it was more likely to be found in domesticated animals. And what did the settlers bring with them? Domesticated animals and diseases. So this almost assuredly was a catastrophe brought on by the settlers from England.
Oh
which
my gosh.
Sucks. So, like, not only did you get captured, taken away from your homeland, sold into slavery, but you managed to get away, make it back home, only to find out none of your friends and family are alive anymore.
You literally fought your way home to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's sick. That's messed up.
After he comes back, he does what he can to get by. He gets associated with a different tribe, and now the Mayflower has arrived and he's introduced himself, right? He lives with these settlers from the Mayflower for 20 months.
Sheesh.
During this time, he introduced them to the fur trade. He taught them how to fish. He taught them how to cultivate crops, which is a good thing because all of the seeds that they had brought from England were not viable here. I don't know if it was because they died during the trip, or
dried out.
if this is not the same
soil,
ecological environment that they needed. I don't know enough about plants to know that for sure, but for whatever reason, these seeds were not viable anymore, and most of them failed.
Yeah.
So without this man, these settlers would have perished. He also taught them how to harvest sap from maple trees.
Oh, yeah.
Which sounds really cool. I'd like to know how to do that. And how to avoid poisonous plants.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to avoid poisonous plants. So I see poison ivy and I'm like, is that poison ivy? I think it is, but I don't know. And I just avoid it just to be on the safe side. But I don't actually know. Squanto.
I love his name.
I do too. Helped to form an alliance between at least the Wampanoag. Thanks, ma'am.
I know my tribes.
Wampanoag tribe, which lasted for almost 50 years, which is one of the longest running alliances during this time in history between the white peoples and the indigenous peoples.
That's awesome.
So he definitely left his mark in history. In 1621, so a year after the settlers had arrived here.
Wait, hold on. I have a question. This is a dumb question.
Probably not, but yeah.
I'm very tired. I've had no sleep.
Oh, yes. Was that your question?
This is in New York, right?
No.
Where?
Cape Cod is in Massachusetts.
It's on the same side.
It's in the Northeast.
It's the same side.
I mean, you're a lot closer in New York to Massachusetts than you are here to Massachusetts, so I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes.
Massachusetts.
I don't know why I was thinking. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
You good? So a year later, they had their first successful harvest of corn. William Bradford, I'm ignoring that because I'm irritating myself by how many times I've hit my glasses on this microphone. William Bradford was the governor at the time of the Plymouth colony.
That's a very familiar name.
Oh, it is. I read that and I was like, I think maybe that's the only thing I learned about this in school.
Mm-hmm.
Because for some reason his name really sticks out to me.
It does.
William Bradford was so elated by these successes that he hosted a celebration. And because Squanto had been such a large contender in this, he invited Massasoit, which was the chief of the Wampanoag Confederacy back then.
Okay. I really want to see these names you're butchering.
I don't know how much I butchered that, because I actually looked that one up and I have the pronunciation, and that is exactly how it tells me to pronounce it.
Okay.
They've got a lot more syllables and consonants in them than our modern day names do.
Yeah, it's weird.
That are more like white people names, because William Bradford is an old name, but it's very easy to say because it sounds like our names.
Yeah, but it's crazy how they can just roll it off the tongue and it's so easy for them.
Well, also, if you listen to their language, their spoken language, which I don't know about this language if that's a thing anymore, but like Osage language.
Osage, Cherokee.
It sounds like this.
Yeah.
Which I know is probably a very whitewashed thing for me to say, but in comparison to English, it all just flows so well. And their names are not unusual compared to the way that their words are said. Just like our names are not unusual compared to the way our words are pronounced.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's really pretty when it's really pretty.
Yeah.
It's really pretty.
Apparently, there is a man who sings in Cherokee that I think he's already played, but he was supposed to be playing at a local venue. And one of my coworkers showed me a video, and it was phenomenal.
The older gentleman?
No, he was like middle-aged. He was not gray. And it was fantastic. It was so pretty.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it just flows so well. He's a newer artist.
That's cool.
Yeah. This celebration lasted for 3 days.
Sheesh. Party.
It's not super clear as to what was eaten there because, written record was not much of a thing then. But we can pretty well assume that it would be the traditional dishes of the Native Americans with the spices that they would use, the foodstuffs that they would use, and the cooking techniques that they would use.
Yeah.
Because coming from London or England, I keep saying London, but really England, you don't have ovens here.
No.
Or you didn't. You don't have all the ingredients here that they had there.
Yeah.
Including sugar. Sugar was not a thing here. So pies, desserts, cakes, tarts, those more than likely were not a thing at this feast.
Yeah.
And all the sugar that the settlers had traveled with from England when they came a year prior, more than likely most of those rations were gone by now because it had been well over a year.
Yeah.
So they really didn't have that. And it's kind of funny to think now, though it's been over 400 years, desserts are such a big part of our dinners here, at least in America.
Yes.
That I would be personally devastated if I didn't have pie during Thanksgiving.
Yes, you would.
Yeah.
Yes, you would.
I've also gotten kind of old, and my favorite kind of pies are starting to be pumpkin pie and pecan pie.
I knew you were going to say pecan. Oh,
Yeah.
I love me a good old pecan pie.
I know. I was like, oh, God, my old is showing.
Why is that? I don't understand why that's an old people thing.
I mean, because children are like, nuts. Ew.
I grew up eating pecans. And you ate some of the pecans?
Yeah, I grew up eating pecans too.
Like, remember when we had to go pick the pecans?
I never liked eating pecan pies because as a child, I was like, I just want sugar, sugar, and more sugar on my pie.
But that pecan pie, the
filling.
Oh my gosh. Go. We are old. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah, but that is like by far.
Ooh, so good.
I told Robert I wanted pecan pie, and he was like, "Ew, no." I was like, "Fine, I'll ask my mom for pecan pie."
I'll eat a pecan pie with you.
Hell yeah.
You know, me and my husband, when I was pregnant with my son, we sat at the kitchen table, just me and him, and we ate an entire pie for breakfast.
That does not surprise me.
And we ate it straight out of the pan.
That's the only way to do it.
With 2 forks and a pregnant belly and determination. We ate the entire thing in one sitting.
Be honest with me, though. Did it really take that much determination?
No.
I was going to say, it wouldn't take that much determination
it was
for me.
So good. That's when I started liking pecan pie. Like, actually liking it.
So it's the kids' fault.
Yeah. It's so weird because, you know, deviled eggs is a thing during Thanksgiving and Easter and Christmas.
Easter, yeah. I specifically request my mom make those things for holidays, so I also get them.
I did not like deviled eggs until I was pregnant with my son, and now I just cannot get enough of them. That never went away. I
didn't like them until a few years ago, and then I don't really know why. One day I was just like, I want to try one, and my mom was like, what? And my dad was like, what? And I was like, what?
I'm an adult. Let me try.
And then I tried it, and I was like,
oh, so good.
And now I'm like, Mom, are you making deviled eggs with it, though? But do we have deviled eggs? Okay, that's great that we're having baked beans and pork roast, but like deviled eggs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
there. I'll eat a whole pecan pie with you, girl.
We won't have to share.
Nope. Just you and me.
Even better.
2 forks. Sound like someone was trying to open your door there for a second.
Probably a cat being obnoxious. 1623. 2 years later.
Oh my.
There was a drought that the settlers had made it through. And, you know, now we still have droughts to this day. Like, nothing has changed.
Right.
But it's not as scary. I mean, it's still scary, but if we have a drought here, it's fine. We'll ship in crops from somewhere else in the world.
Yeah.
We're not going to go hungry.
Yes. We have big trade. Yeah.
So it's not as scary for us. But back then, it was terrifying.
They didn't have as many resources.
Mm-hmm. And they survived the drought.
Nice.
So in 1623, Mr. William Bradford is still in charge around those parts. And he called for a religious fast.
What?
As celebration for surviving the drought and the hardships.
Okay.
This was followed by a feast. In celebration, yet again.
Okay.
I found that part interesting, that instead of feasting in celebration, they fasted.
Yeah, that's like the first thing that comes to mind. They didn't eat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we just got through a drought where we probably had to ration a lot. So why are we not eating?
As a thanks to God.
Yes, thank you, Lord. Please fill my belly with all this deviled eggs and corn and biscuits and all the things. Amen.
I will say that when we get closer to big meals like that, I eat very little for like a day or two leading up to it. So my belly is extremely empty and ready to accept all of its offerings. So not for any religious reasons, but just because I want to be able to be properly gluttonous on the day.
I don't really do that anymore.
I eat from sun up to sundown. I get up and I start eating cookies for breakfast, and then it never stops. And that's always why I feel ill for like 4 days after Thanksgiving.
You do it to yourself.
It's a grave I dig myself.
Yeah.
So after some hardships, they started experiencing food shortages, and it was becoming a problem. So William Bradford entrusted Squanto to lead a voyage around the Cape through, I believe it was some rather treacherous waters, and like jagged rocks were sticking out.
Ooh.
So it was a little scarier. And as somebody who was born and raised there, he was probably a lot more familiar with the terrain and how to navigate those waters. So I'm guessing that's probably why he was like, please take the lead on this.
Okay.
Right. During this voyage, Squanto got sick.
Oh, no.
With what they called then as Indian fever.
Ugh.
I wasn't able to do a lot of research on this part. This is the part I really wanted to expand on. So I'm seriously considering it for a different episode. But I unfortunately ran out of time between like work and then my other personal responsibilities and those kinds of things. I just ran out of time on this.
Yeah.
And the only thing I was really able to find with my short amount of time was that he was bleeding from his nose.
Isn't that equivalent to yellow fever?
I don't know.
Okay. Because it's like bleeding from your nose and sometimes from your ears.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a fever, and then sometimes you can kind of get like a yellow tinge to your skin.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like the same thing. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You know, you're good.
Oh, and hold on. I have to say something, Anna. Every time you say William Bradford, it sounds like you're like, if you. Do you not like the guy?
No, not necessarily. I mean, from what I read of him, he seems like a decent dude. I didn't see any reason to dislike him, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
When Squanto passed on from this, what they called Indian fever, he was beside himself.
Oh, no.
With grief.
Oh,
he mourned the loss of someone that I'm guessing he considered a close friend and ally.
That's sad.
So it seems like he it seemed like he really cared for him.
That's sad. Maybe you're just aggressive when you say William Bradford.
I am. I feel like that's a name that's like really easy to be aggressive with. But no, I don't. As far as I know right now, I don't have anything against the guy. But
yeah, I would love for you to dive in a little deeper with all of that, because that's really cool.
Yeah, spoilers. I'm definitely gonna be bringing some epidemiology talks to the podcast at some point. I don't know when it's gonna be.
Okay.
I got to figure out what I want to talk about. I want to talk about some really scary things, and then some things that maybe aren't so quite scary that people are scared of.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll find out. But I'll definitely, if you want that, I'll put that on my list of things to look more into, and we can talk about that.
Okay.
Soon.
That sounds good.
Cool. So yeah, that was a brief synopsis on Mr. Squanto and how he helped to unite the indigenous peoples and the settlers, because that was not the case everywhere and for every tribe. And there were a lot of situations where the settlers would come in, kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of this, and they would just trade with whatever tribe they were closest to. And that also started building a lot of strife and a lot of unrest within the communities that lived in the Northeast, and they started going to war with each other.
Yes.
And those kinds of things. So the fact that there was actually a little bit of sunshine in a rather dark history of the immigration to America, it's nice. It's nice that somebody somewhere for even a short period of time was able to coexist and get along and respect each other's cultures.
Yeah. And it sounds like he really made a difference.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like this could be one of those things where it's like even a lot of information on the internet's wrong, and he was actually held as a captive and forced to work for them. I feel like that could be a possibility just because of how dark history really is.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm hoping that it was skeptical. Not like that, but
I got a lot of my information from like Native American websites too, where their information was like actually from the tribes that had kept their record all these years. So I'm hoping that a lot of this information is accurate.
Yeah, those are usually pretty accurate because they, oh my gosh, like I know you've never been to a powwow or anything, but
I have. You've taken me to 2.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
I know.
Were you there when they were doing the storytelling?
I don't know. I say I've been, but it's been so long that I don't remember a lot of it.
Okay, well, each tribe does it like in a different way. Some people do it like literally just sitting down and like telling like tribal stories about like what happened, because that's how they keep record. Is
it's a verbal history.
It's a verbal history. And so but it's really cool because sometimes they just sit down and they tell the story, or they have someone sing it, or they have someone dance it while there's like an interpreter.
That would be so cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. It is really, really cool. But like that's how like I grew up, is word of mouth. And like my mom heard from her dad, and then his,
so on and so forth.
I mean, it went down the line. So I mean, of course it could be like a game of telephone, something kind of gets mixed up a little bit, but they're so religious with it. It's just like a prayer. Of course something is going to get a little mixed up, but it's, and they tell the same things over and over. Yeah. So, and then it just moves on to the next generation, and it keeps moving. Which is really hard, because there are some tribes that are completely gone. And then there's some tribes where there's only a little left, like the elders. And there are some that are still in the community and plan to pass these things down. But there are a lot that don't.
Well, another thing to being able to successfully pass down history, especially from a verbal record keeping way, is having somebody who's willing and eager to accept that history.
Yeah.
And I don't I don't think that's near as plentiful as it used to be.
Yeah. Especially nowadays. 100%.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I can't wait to hear more about that.
I'll make notes in my notebook.
Okay.
We'll talk about it more later on.
Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty cool Thanksgiving story.
Yeah. I'll because my morbid curiosity just can't help itself. I'll definitely at some point dive into maybe some more
spooky, dark,
yeah,
deranged.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily of Thanksgiving, but like the interactions between settlers and the Native Americans that lived here and those types of things.
Yeah.
Because I think all Native American history has had an incredible disservice done to it since the settlers came over.
Yes.
It's like everything, especially now, has just been very sugar coated, and everything has been made out to seem very much so like a voluntary sacrifice on the Native Americans' part versus what actually happened.
Yeah.
So just also for my own knowledge, I think it would be really fun. I say that limitedly. To actually learn about what really happened.
Yeah.
And not what public schools want us to know.
Public schools.
Public schools.
How dare they? Whatever. I think that was cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And for going down that rabbit hole. Absolutely. Instead, because that was good.
It was a little more wholesome than I wanted it to be, but that's okay.
That sounds
really sad, but
really sad.
We
but
want
you know
wholesome
what?
stories, but
it's
we
okay.
also we want to uncover the truth.
Yeah, the truth.
If we haven't told the truth, be sure to let us know that down in the comments.
Okay.
But for realsies though, if you hear misinformation on here and you want to correct us, you know where to leave that. With sources, of course. Are we supposed to share our sources? I literally just had that thought.
No, you don't have to.
This is not like an MLA formatting in text citations.
I'm gonna fucking hurt you. Oh my gosh.
Just want to make sure.
You drive me nuts sometimes with your MLA formatted things. Do I need sources? No, ma'am. Like, okay, listen, I have to say that you put your sources, like, I'm not going to touch your sources, honey. You put your sources on your freaking notes about what we're doing on the podcast, and I'm not touching your damn sources. I don't know why you already wrote down your notes from it. You cracked me up.
Back and reference it.
Love you.
That's just the way I do things.
That is how you be doing it, PowerPoints and all.
That's how I would write my research papers, especially in my summer courses, when I'd have like 4 days to write like a 10-page research paper.
You have not been in college for a while.
Don't worry. Oh my God, what is with my hiccups today? They beat that idea into my head. Obviously, it's still here. How many years later?
Yeah. She's over here typing out formulated like stuff, and then I'm over here like,
here's the gist.
Reddit story. Well, what are you gonna do a Reddit story about? Thanksgiving.
But what about Thanksgiving? There's so much.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well.
She's way more organized, and I
need too much information.
That's beautiful. And she has to deal with my unorganization, and that's okay.
It's okay. We make it work.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so I really hope you guys had a fantastic Thanksgiving, or that you are having a fantastic Thanksgiving, whatever day you decide to watch this. eat some deviled eggs for us.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're probably going to have some. Just have an extra fill for us. And some pumpkin pie.
Something I forgot to add.
Okay, what's up?
I don't think I added it.
What's
but
up?
There are quite a few members of tribes, like current day members of tribes, who do not celebrate Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because of the history of what's been taken from them.
Yeah.
And the hardships that they've faced.
Yeah. I know for sure Mohawk is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Blackfoot.
Yeah. I found that really interesting because as somebody who's grown up, as I like to think, rather privileged, you know, I really haven't faced a whole lot of hardships in my life out of what you would normally face as a child growing up.
Right.
You know.
Right.
It's just not really something you think about on your day-to-day. Like, you think about, woohoo, I get to eat a lot of food. But then there's other people thinking, well, this is just a reminder that even though it was 400 years ago,
yeah,
actions haven't been rectified. So, like, they're just thinking that their ancestors have been harvested and murdered.
It was genocide.
Yeah.
It was genocide. That's exactly what it is. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's full on genocide. It's nothing pretty. It's absolutely horrific. There's nothing pretty about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's not something I think about on my regular day-to-day because it doesn't affect me directly, which, you know, sounds awful when you say it out loud, but that's truly how most people think. Like, if it's something that doesn't affect or directly affect you, that's not something that's in the forefront of your mind usually.
I think about it.
It's humbling.
I think about it every year.
Yeah, but you're like, you grew up very immersed in the Native American culture because your mom is very much so a part of that community.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, no. I know. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just because my culture growing up was different. I did think about it. I still do. What about your partner? Do you know?
Not really. His grandma, I think it was his grandma, did not register herself with the nation because you were, like, at that point you were still being discriminated against. So she never got her, like, tribal card or anything like that. So when he went to get his, it's been a few years now, we had to work a little extra hard to get all of his stuff together because he essentially had to, like, prove that is his bloodline.
Yeah. Did he not want to do the blood test?
I think you had to pay extra for that.
Yeah, you do.
And he was just trying to get his card.
Yeah.
At that point, so
yeah,
we had to go to the headquarters down there in the southern part of the state.
Yeah.
So.
Dang.
So yeah, it wasn't really something that was talked about in his family growing up either. He's way more of a history buff than I am, though, so he knows a lot more about these kind of things than I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't know if he has ever brought up anything about Thanksgiving, you know, and the genocide.
Nope, they had a very white Thanksgiving over there. It was very much so wheat, turkey, or ham, all the fixins, pie for dessert, and then everybody went on their separate ways. So, pretty traditional, American traditional over there anyway.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people are just traditional nowadays, and they don't really. It's an excuse to eat and to gather and to make people be around each other.
See,
but at the same time, like I enjoy my Thanksgiving I have with my in-laws, so
for sure,
there's nothing bad to say about it.
That's another reason that I'm not the biggest fan of holidays, because I don't feel like you should have to have a
reason,
government officiated reason to spend time with people you care about.
Yeah.
Or to show them that you care.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that, you know, we have like a good relationship, and we hang out with them way more than we do anybody else in the family. But now that we're all scattered out, all of us kids, you know, it is a really good time for everybody to be able to get off work and make it to one place, because we're all scattered now.
Yeah.
So, yes. Anyways, sorry, we went down a little bit dark spot there, but you know what? It be how it be.
It be how it be. If we don't want dark history, we should stop doing shitty things.
Okay, so just so you guys know, we are thinking about changing our name, so you might see that pop up.
Yes, we are. We are workshopping some things. We're trying to get a name that kind of signifies a little bit more of who we are, and just have more of our personalities shine through in our name.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we always bring something interesting to the table. So I feel like open dialogue is generically good. But
yeah,
I think, you know, it should be something that represents us more. Yeah.
We're a work in progress right now, but we kind of knew that starting off. So we really appreciate everybody's patience with us so far, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we pop ourselves into the new year as New Year, New Us.
Yes.
But hopefully, you know, with most of our kinks worked out. But not to worry, we will always have difficulties here, because we are just two awkward humans trying to get through life, but we'll figure it out.
Yes, awkward humans. Yeah, so yay,
Right.
happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Also, I don't think we made the announcement yet. I don't know. We may not have a full-fledged video coming at you guys the first week of December. We, of course, record our videos a few days before we actually post them, and we're considering taking a little bit of extra time to spend with our loved ones during the holiday season, because even through all the things we've just talked about, unfortunately, sometimes with our loved ones, the only times we're able to get together with them where they have time off work is the holidays. So
yes,
we're thinking about that, but we will definitely still have content for you guys the first week of December. It might just not be a full-fledged episode. So
yeah. Yep.
Okay. I think we got both of our announcements out.
Okay, yay.
We can say bye now.
Bye.
Bye.